Hi! You know, after I covered the sexiest Atari 2600 games, I realised that there does exist one other so-called pornographic game for the beloved 70s home video console. And for the sake of completion, and to traumatise my viewers even more, I just want to quickly cover it. Love you! Obviously, what you consider to be a pornographic game would depend on what you consider to be porn. For example, this game, Porky's, based on the film of the same name, I've seen quite a few times listed in articles about pornographic video games. The reason for that is this screen. There's a woman in the shower in the middle. Now that isn't pornographic, okay? You shouldn't need me to tell you why that isn't pornographic. I don't know about you, but if I've learned anything about being female, it's that whenever I'm naked, I'm doing a sex. When I'm in the shower, I do a sex. Every time. By myself. Female bodies aren't inherently pornographic, so Porky's isn't a porny game. I don't even care what you say. But hey, one company called Gamex, sometimes written as Gamex, apparently saw how much drama Mystique's sexy Atari VCS games caused in 1982. And in 1983, they decided, we want a piece of that pie. They clearly saw the gameplay and the poorly drawn sex scenes in Custer's Revenge and Beat 'em and Eat 'em and all that lot, and apparently thought, you know what those games needed? To have the halfway enjoyable gameplay removed and the sex scenes made bigger and better. X-Man isn't a game so much as it is a sex scene sandwiched with thin slices of gameplay. There are games in the Mystique/Play-Around library that I did actually kind of enjoy playing. Beat 'em and Eat 'em is pretty much kaboom, which is fun to play. So when you get past the whole, jism thing, you've actually got a decent gaming experience in that one. And I actually really liked Night on the Town, even just for the absolutely brutal death scene. Oh, that gun hurt. But importantly, each of the games does have solid gameplay, whether it's kind of weak or not. X-Man does not have solid gameplay. X-Man doesn't have anything that's solid. And in addition, anyone who is playing X-Man only has the exact opposite of something solid. Now, just looking at the box art, you can see that there's the strong impression here it's going to be a sexy game. For a start, it says quite clearly that it's an adult-only cartridge, and as I said in my Mystique Games video, games for adults always have to have sex in them, or we can't physically enjoy them otherwise. Or at least that's how it was back in the 80s, apparently. But also, there's some lass here about to unhook her bra. I didn't even know that there were bras that clip open at the front until I looked into this. So now I'm just angry that I've been pulling muscles in my shoulders using bras that fix at the back like an utter chump all my life. This is our main man, X-Man, who has his name on his shirt like a sheer weirdo. He's very excited. Some might say, terrifyingly so. Maybe he's holding on to his Johnson because he's protecting it from a pair of scissors, a crab, and a massive pair of teeth. Okay, if I was being chased by these things, I would hold on to my Johnson as well. It's a reflex action, isn't it? I cringe when I chop any kind of phallic vegetable and have to have a non-stick pan down the front of my trousers, just in case Loretta Bobbitt comes out of nowhere. Am I the only one who does that? A game all about castration anxiety. Perfect. The scissors for fear of literal emasculation, the teeth for the vagina that has the teeth thing, that's apparently a thing, and the crab for STDs. So basically the three main things that straight men worry about, I assume. I'm kind of impressed with the symbolism used in such a lowbrow game, which once again proves that my personal bar is set very low. So the company Gamex only released this one game under that name, probably because the game was a one-off creation of B-movie maker Alan Roberts, developed by HK Poon? HK Poon? Like Poon? Like, are you serious? Are you serious? Poon? Poon isn't an unusual name in China, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's where Mr. Alan Roberts outsourced the development to. But since this game is a rude game, that's either a pen name or an absolutely excellent coincidence. I'm going for the latter because that's absolutely delightful, and I'm at that stage where these little joys are keeping me from a fully fledged meltdown. According to the box, you're taking the role of X-Man, who is the macho super stud of the year. This guy really looks like he gets a lot of sex. This guy is the first thing I envisage when I think of a man slag. Some bloke grimacing like he's just stubbed his toe and wearing a shirt with his name on it. This woman doesn't get a name, even in the blurb. She's called Sexy Blonde in parenthesis. Does that mean she's not a sexy blonde? Well, she looks pretty sexy to me, if I'm honest. I'm so confused. Alright, let's just play the damn game. What am I looking at here? Is this supposed to be a woman trying to entice me from a corner down an alleyway? Because what the hell kind of horrendous accident was she in that her waving arm looks like that? How can you fail so badly at drawing a human being? Look at the bodies in the Mystique games. Yeah, they look silly, but for the graphical limitations, I have to admit, the animation in Lady in Waiting, for example, is really nice. This woman, on the other hand, she looks like what MS Paint was used for by 12-year-old boys before the internet. I love how she proudly just flashes her leg out like that, even though she's very clearly got edema. You know that condition where you have a load of fluid build up around your ankles? You learn something from these videos sometimes. Fair play to you, girl. Love yourself. I have heard that compression socks can help with that, though. Well, after being deeply titillated by that start screen, you're taken straight to the gameplay. The really, really crap gameplay. It's a maze game, but not a maze game that requires actual skill like Pac-Man. This is one of the worst maze games ever. You know those little mazes that you get on the back of kids' menus at Pizza Hut? That is a better maze game than this one. Here's our X-Man down here. Look at that complete and utter super sheer macho stud with his thing that's supposed to be a penis. The developer had such a small space to work with, but even though the guy was gonna have to be so small, it was still very important for him to have a little penis drawn on him. It does not work at all. This drawing, I mean, I can't speak for the penis. It doesn't even look like a guy. It looks more like a squashed fish skeleton, or a really horny hate symbol. Off he goes, into the maze, which isn't really a maze. It's just one path with a couple of dead ends that add zero difficulty to it. What does make things a bit trickier for our deeply deformed lad here is that there's three things that might try to share the path with him. An angry crab, a pair of scissors, and a clampy toothy thing. I assume it's the clampy toothy thing from the cover. The crab looks like a broken chain link, so your imagination is really being stretched here. You can't attack the things that stop you, but you can dip out of the way using little side alleys. And that's how you'll eventually get to the pink square in the middle, which is where the sexy blonde, quotation marks, is waiting for you. Literally, I just dodged the one thing and now I'm home and dry, so that was easy. I hope this is going to be sensual. After the pandemic leaving me without even the touch of a human for 2 years, I gotta admit that there's doorknobs in my house that are looking pretty good to me right now. What? What? Oh boy! There's absolutely zero effort there to make this look like an actual sex scene. This literally looks like two rectangle shapes shagging. In fact, that's what it is. This is like a mildly X-rated version of Sesame Street. One rectangle. Don't tell your parents. There's plenty of room here to draw in some curves or maybe even a little jiggling. I hate to bring them back up again, but look at this sex scene in Mystique's Gigolo. That's actually mildly erotic if you squint hard enough. So we already know that the Atari 2600 is more than capable of making sex scenes that would be judged as passable on DeviantArt. This is the lowest effort sex scene since the last season of Game of Thrones. I actually feel really bad for the young boys, you know, the ones who would have very clearly been the only people interested in playing this, when they looked at this cover art and then this is what they got. This. I get this was the 80s, but there is nobody who is not going to find this absolutely hilarious. I should know, I'm really childish, and that is piss funny. Just jiggle the joystick back and forth and reach that climax. Wow. Sometimes they say it's like fireworks going off. In X-Men, you become those fireworks, and you're gonna get burned in some very painful places. Also, the woman's nipples will keep flashing while you're having sex. Well, at least that's one thing that's realistic. Oh, but don't worry, that's not the only sex scene you're going to be treated to. Complete the next level. Here we go, it's time for missionary. Jesus, her face. Complete the next level and our hero is getting a special treat. Complete the next level and you'll have those 3 sex scenes played automatically for you, like a cutscene. Because as you know, only those 3 sex positions exist. Which is news to me, because I thought there was only 2. I guess in a weird way, having those sex scenes did make me want to keep playing, you know, just to see the next one and have another really good laugh. But this maze part is so boring, and it's not difficult at all. As soon as you work out that the things coming for your business always turn right every time they reach a junction, this game becomes incredibly easy. Like your dad. Just wait for the thing to pass by and keep going through the rest of the boring maze. Jiggle the joystick to make our guy do his insertions. Back to the maze. Fundamentally, this is a crap game. It genuinely is one of the absolute worst that was commercially released on the system. When this game was released, it was just a few months to a year after the whole uproar around Mystique's Custer's Revenge, the Atari game which had rape in it. But even with that in mind, after playing X-Man, you'd probably be thinking, oh, there's no way anyone's going to be pissed off by this. I mean, look at it. But no, people can get pissed off by that, apparently. I couldn't find any newspaper articles from the time that specifically call out X-Man as something anyone protested about. I think that dubious pleasure all went to Mystique's Custer's Revenge. Still, people were pissed at this game. Here's some reader letters to Video Gaming Illustrated in September 1983.
I feel that your reviewers and staff did not exercise good judgment in reviewing and running advertisements for X-rated cartridges such as X-Man. The other video game magazines don't accept such ads, and I, for one, am glad they don't. Being different is not always desirable or right. I hope it was a temporary lapse in judgment.
Oh dear, Philip Edwards in Fresno is not impressed. Because you have decided to compromise the integrity of your publication for the money this X-Man advertisement has brought you, you have permanently lost my business. My money is worth more to me than to purchase something like this. I am very disappointed. Ah, the good old writing to tell you that I don't care and I don't care if you don't care that I don't care. It's good to know that people like that existed before the internet came along. Here's the offending advert, by the way. I can hear you clutching your pearls from here. So this is what I don't get. With Custer's Revenge, it very clearly does depict rape on the box art and in the original version of the game. But we don't have that with X-Man. We've got consenting parties here. Unless the uproar was only about how bad that sex scene was, I don't know what you're getting pissed off for, sis. X-Man's creator did have more games planned. In Video Gaming Illustrated in October 1983, Tim Moriarty wrote that Alan Roberts seemed quite keen to keep things going with his Gamex company, even after admitting that the bad press around the Mystique games made things a bit harder in terms of getting X-Man distributed.
The response from players has been enthusiastic, women and men. We were anticipating terrific business, but it has been hindered as a result of the Mystique line and the bad press that came from it.
Seems that in the USA at least, major wholesalers had put certain rules in place regarding what games they'd put on their books, but apparently that didn't put Roberts off. The guy reportedly said Gamex was working on a game called Rescue of Emmanuel.
It is a male-orientated action game where one has to rescue Emmanuel. If you are skillful enough to save her, she is going to thank you, bestow her kindness on you.
Which means they gone shag. And in the same article, Roberts said that if X-Man had been a success, he would have got a similar one made, but for women. Doesn't seem that anything like that got even past the brainstorming stage though. Sorry ladies, sorry. Roberts comes off in this article as not really being sexist at all. X-Man is not a rapey game. There's 2 consenting parties here. That is if you don't count the player of the game, who is me, and I am absolutely not consenting to this shit, but I've got to make a living, so here we are. Here's a quote from Roberts about X-Man.
I don't think I've treated women with disrespect, or at least I hope that's not a quality that I have, and I hope my games don't either.
Genuinely, he seems like the kind of guy who would take stock if he was called out for being sexist. And this was in the 80s when these kind of adverts were still a thing, so honestly, fair play to him. He's already way more respectful than the guys behind Mystique were. Those guys basically brushed off the anger about their Custer raping a Native American girl with "we don't care if you're offended because we don't think you should be." Yeah, asshats. Roberts ends it with a really pertinent point that still applies to many things today.
I think there is communication when a feminist says that these games are sexist. That at least begins a communication. If what comes out of it is a definition of what is sexist and what is negative, then hopefully people are going to learn by that.
Well said, Mr. Alan Roberts. Maybe it's not up to you to decide what women would find offensive, any more than it's up to me to decide what cisgendered males would be offended by. What a great way to end a thoughtful and tolerant article. Oh God! Spokesmen for the video game and computer industry are quick to wax sanctimonious at the mention of X-rated video games, yet at the shows, underdressed women are hired to attract people to the display booths. We are shocked and only too glad to expose this exploitation and hypocrisy as graphically as possible. Ha 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 ha. Oh man, you were so close. You were so fucking close! Way to finish up an article about exploitation and sexualization of the female form in video games, you guys. Ah, the 80s. The writer explicitly thinks X-rated equals a woman in shorts. For fuck's sake. There are a couple of sexy pornographic games that I haven't mentioned, which were at least meant to be made for the Atari 2600, but unfortunately, or fortunately, I suppose, they either never got past the planning stage or only came to light as prototypes. There are, however, sexy games made for computers at the time, like the ZX Spectra and the Commodore 64, but that's for another time if YouTube hasn't already just demonetized my entire channel after that video. It's the flashing nipples that do it, my friend. Not if they're male flashing nipples, only if they're women flashing nipples. Make it make sense. What the? Not again. Thank you very much for watching. I love you guys. Platonically.